Welcome back to the techno-communism conversation. I am going to talk about dismantling the United States military-industrial complex, the world's worst polluter, whose only real job on the world stage is protecting other super polluters with extreme violence, creating what is effectively an inescapable global regime of super pollution. We can dismantle that MIC and in favor of the more powerful, in every respect, AI agentic class network that I've described many times on this channel. Building a socialist springboard for North American AI. This will also discuss a little bit about China, and I will transition more to that and what United Earth Directorate, a world governance structure transformed by the full realization of the AI agentic class might look like. Now, the prospect of an advanced computing takeoff is not a mere pipe dream, as it was in decades past. I believe this thing is well underway, and this is driven by significant advancements in fields like machine learning and the building of large language models, which are now not only useful products that you can find on websites run by large corporations, but also comparable products of an open source kind that can be downloaded to many machines, generally working better if you have a GPU on that machine. And because these are open source and free and nearly agentic, increasingly agentic with each passing month, it is now possible to specially tailor these free downloadable open source LLMs to work together with one another with user oversight, creating the rudiments of an effective AI superintelligence. And I've described this at great length on this channel as a workforce multiplier that will allow the comrade user to do more with less effectively, to operate on a click-through process principle where they would have to do very little work, answer a few basically often yes or no emails throughout the course of a week, but nevertheless, by doing this, they would be doing higher end work than perhaps anyone alive. And when you consider that most of us are compelled against our will to work within systems that are a net negative, operating in ways that are harmful to the environment and do not provide the necessaries of life for ourselves or anyone else. These are the things that would distinguish the more fascistic systems, such as the neoliberal financial capitalistic system of the United States, from the more socialistic system of the kind that I often describe on this program. And so the ability to build such a network of advanced worker collectives empowered by advanced computing allows us to begin to plot a course toward a genuinely post-scarcity or quite nearly post-scarcity and ultimately full communistic future. And so in this conversation, we will argue that the United States is currently burdened by its cumbersome, outdated, militaristic approach to advanced computing and other sectors. And this is embodied by its $1 trillion a year military-industrial complex. And because of this albatross around its neck, it risks irrelevance in the coming networked age. And so a choice could be made on the part of citizens, certainly not very much on the part of the ruling elites, but citizens ultimately can grab the reins of this thing. A radical shift toward a socialistic model centered on the development of a North American AI agentic class network. And I believe that this is the best viable option to secure the United States' future and foster a new era of revolutionary cybernetic socialism. I am not a person who very much engages with nationalistic ideas, particularly as it relates to the United States of America. However, I consider this one a real option to make right the wrongs of the United States, past and present, which are almost too innumerable to mention. But I've touched upon many of this on other shows that you can watch. And so our conversation outlines the necessary steps for building this revolutionary and transformative AI agentic class network, and it explores some other considerations and challenges, and thus offers a kind of roadmap for navigating the transition from this far-right financial capital captured set of systems and militaristic military-industrial complex-driven model to one that is ultimately sufficiently socialistic, the AI agentic class network-based framework. This obsolete model for the advanced computing age, the military-industrial complex, must be explored. The United States approach to research and development and technology and advanced computing is largely dictated by its military-industrial complex, a network of corporations, government agencies, research institutions, and other entities focused on military applications. While the MIC has undoubtedly fueled past technological advancements, it has also held many things back to a greater degree, in my view, but it's difficult to pinpoint that as easily as it is to talk about the advancements that have been made. It overall prevents significant drawbacks as we move into the mid-21st century in the advanced computing race. The short-term profit motive, while as it's been able to drive this system thus far, the short-term profit motive and the centering of affairs on private wealth and corporation will hinder a real utility in long-term foundational research and developments, such as the description on this channel, in this show and others, of a robust AI agentic class network, or other such developments which may not hinge so much on large language models or on this particular concept, but would inevitably involve larger and larger number of peoples, be citizen-centered, and necessarily then require the move away from the capitalistic model that's described in this essay. The culture of siloing of data, of secrecy within so many of these corporate entities and within the MIC itself limits to a very, very high degree the ability to collaborate and share knowledge, hindering the essential open source collaborative spirit central to the AI agentic class network model, and which was the basis for software development before the 1980s. And I think that we will necessarily move back to that. It may not happen in the United States, but other places are already allowing for this kind of mass collaboration by removing those silos, and that is itself the force multiplier that would threaten to leave the United States in the dust, as I said in the recent show. The focus on weaponization is a problem for the United States military-industrial complex. It prioritizes technology and advanced computing for specific kinds of military applications, which would have to be described as harmful, and it neglects its potential then for social good and economic development. This approach has fueled arms races in the past that have had devastating consequences for the world, and this approach has done great harm, I believe, to the United States, and certainly great harm to the world to this day. And such a further arms race of this kind could have devastating consequences well beyond those already experienced, including things on the order of magnitude of a tremendous existential risk, the annihilation of the species. We all know this, having lived our lives in this era of nuclear war. The limitations of the military-industrial complex model should by now be then apparent. So in contrast, China, with its centralized planning and focus on advanced computing for civilian applications, represents a different kind of model. And for the United States, in the wake of this AI takeoff and this force multiplier of greater citizen engagement, something like a threat to its hegemonic power, that is, wouldn't be a threat to other nations, but to one such as the United States, this is viewed as a threat. So the United States then risks being left behind in the race to develop things like a transformative AI agentic class network. So I would encourage people, even if you're not titillated by scientific socialist thought or by cybernetic socialist concepts described on this channel, to consider that this would necessarily be something that you must consider, because the United States is responsible for a tremendous number of deaths and misdeeds throughout its history up to the present day, and if it loses if it falls behind in this area, it probably will have to be to account for its crimes, which it should be, but it would seem, from the perspective of folks like the professional managerial class, that this necessary shift towards this effectively techno-communistic mandate would be in its best interest. Now, however, private wealth does not operate by this kind of logic. There are many politicians, for example, who have kind of been on the record saying, we exist, we are creatures of this corporate capture of our government, and no matter what the people do, no matter how much conditions change, we're going down with the ship, so to speak. We're going to stick to this imperial fascist and corporate fascistic model, so this is generally the feeling among neoliberals and supporters of financial capitalism. So I wouldn't hold your breath as to this pivot toward this cybernetic socialistic model. However, I believe it's reasonable to make the case. A North American AI agentic class network is a catalyst for revolutionary change under cybernetic socialism and ultimately full techno-communism. The AI agentic class network proposes a fundamentally different approach to advanced computing development. It necessitates increasingly collective ownership and governance structures. Workers within the AI agentic class model collectively own the means of production and participate in a representative fashion in decision making and undertakings within that project. Advanced computing serves as a tool then for collective empowerment and not the further exploitation of human beings by the ruling elites and financial capital. Decentralized intelligence. Open source platforms facilitate knowledge sharing and collaboration between AI agentic class network worker collectives across this continent, for example. This fosters innovation and transcends geographical limitations of many other such undertakings, such as those in your state or municipality. We can use this near full automation framework to free workers from repetitive tasks, ultimately being able to remunerate the worker user and hopefully in short order all not only citizens of the United States but all citizens of Earth. But we must start here with the provision of universal basic services and some kind of income guarantee, ensuring a minimum but very reasonable standard of living, and decoupling income and other provision of services from employment, a great drag on people's ability to do good work and not be alienated from their labor. The AI agentic class network fosters this revolutionary form of cybernetic socialism, and this is merely the use of technology to serve the collective good, and it is a framework where humans and advanced computing systems like these interoperable mass of LLMs collaborate to create a more just and equitable society. This vision stands in stark contrast to that siloed and highly exploitative and militaristic approach of the present United States and its military-industrial complex. A multi-pronged approach to the creation of the AI agentic class network, building a transformative North American AI agentic class network requires some unique approaches. We need to democratize further access to technology and bridging the digital divide by providing more affordable access to high-speed internet and suitable computers, AI training programs for all citizens across this continent, and this will create a large pool of potential participants in the AI agentic class network, more comparable to that already exists in China. And it's been written about quite extensively by other AI philosophers and technologists, but data should be viewed as a public good, functionally a human right akin to other human rights. We need to focus far more on publicly funded research. All of this came out of the Commons and was moved through acts of great duplicity into private coffers, but we need to again restore the Commons in this and other areas, allowing for publicly funded research and development, shifting resources away from this worst super polluter, the military-industrial complex, and toward public research institutions able to do this similar kind of work, but more focused on human development and open source advanced computing technologies that would be crucial for the AI agentic class network. To create a North American AI agentic class network, we have to establish worker collectives across different industries and geographical regions within North America, encouraging collaboration and knowledge sharing between these collectives through open source platforms, promoting worker cooperatives is a good step in that direction, providing incentives and support for the development of worker-owned and operated cooperatives that could readily integrate into the AI agentic class network framework. I think it's a good idea to first build a critical mass of users within the AI agentic class network, perhaps before doing some of these other things, but all of these are of high importance. And we must consider reframing the concepts of national security in the United States, shifting the focus of national security away from the exertion of military might and toward collective well-being, righting wrongs of the past and present, and fostering global cooperation on issues most particularly climate change and pandemics and other potentially existential risks. This aligns with the collaborative spirit of the AI agentic class network, and very few Americans would ever say that they are fundamentally against this, but nevertheless their government gives them a little option to pursue this within any collective framework. Challenges and considerations for this transition. We must consider that job displacement phenomenon that I've talked about as a strange area for discussion for neoliberal technologists, because they kind of tend to ignore the high degree of job displacement that already has occurred under industrial capitalism and financial capitalism, and talk about it as if it's just a bad thing because now it might affect their computer programmer buddies. But irrespective of when or where this has been problematic, it will continue to be more problematic, and so we must have strategies for empowering the workforce. Programs and retraining and reskilling all are crucial to mitigate the impact of the transition. The power of vested interests within the United States is a difficult one, a sticky wicket. Disrupting the military-industrial complex and redistributing resources will no doubt encounter fierce resistance. As I mentioned, the kind of people within the establishment machine, Democrats or Republicans, who have said, particularly Republicans, have said that they will go down with the ship. I'm not convinced that Democrats would be less likely to go down with the ship, but prominent Republicans have stated that if the move was made on part of the public to, say, remove lobbying or the influence of massive special interests, effectively reversing the near full capture of the U.S. government by corporate power, that they would not be really receptive to the people, no matter what steps they took. They would go down with the ship. They would continue to operate in the fashion of people who are corporate shills of that kind. The social and cultural change, this can easily be overstated. I think people are more adaptable than sometimes are given credit in situations like this. I don't really believe, for example, that there is such a thing as an Overton window. I think mostly when people talk about an Overton window, they're just kind of insisting upon the continued adherence to the effects of things like Project Mockingbird, this elite captured system. They're not really actually concerned that people will not be able to absorb new ideas or comprehend new systems. The transition to a socialistic AI agentic class network in North America, however, would require a significant shift in social and cultural values. For example, the United States penchant for individualism would probably mostly need to be jettisoned as we balance our goals with a stronger sense of collective responsibility. It would require global cooperation, which would require that the United States is willing to change the way that it works and sort of go to the world with hat in hand and apologize for its past misdeeds and promise to be cooperative and good. Then this North American AI agentic class network would be able to be connected to such operations on a global scale, allowing for rapidly enhancing AI development. Collaborations with other networks on other technological standards and systemic changes along these lines would certainly facilitate the development of a cybernetic socialist system. This is a political and social transformation in cybernetic socialism, and it would necessitate a fundamental reshaping of the United States socio-political landscape. Fundamentally would be a new social contract for American people, and one that guarantees basic rights, which would be centered on material conditions, economic concerns of citizens. So oftentimes discussions of rights in the United States somehow manage to avoid that. You have very little rights protected if you're not able to live reasonably well in the process. But this also requires greater access to education, healthcare, and a minimum standard of living through things like universal basic services and guaranteed income. This would foster greater social stability, far greater social stability, and a sense of ownership on the part of those engaging with the AI agentic class network. We have to be able to reclaim the narrative around AI, which would be transitioning away from what I consider to be intelligence agency talking point about AI being dystopian. By and large, people, and it's many of them now, in the AI community who talk about AI as an existential risk are really describing a fear of what I've described in this essay, a change in the governance structure. So it's an existential risk to financial capital. It's not the same as being an existential risk to human beings, but these are pretty deceptive people, so they make it sound as if that's the case. Focus on the potential for advanced computing being used for social good, worker empowerment, and an ultimately stable, equitable, and sustainable future. This requires building a participatory governance structure, a representative governance structure, a thing that does not really exist, although it's often referred to as liberal democracy. The capture described earlier of the United States has made that largely a token and not a true form of representation. So the United States and the North American continent could potentially move from an imperialist hegemon that's loathed by other nations to a global partner. And I believe that the AI agentic class network could serve as a catalyst for this significant shift in this nation's role. And this would ultimately be a thing that would promote peace and sustainable development. Two fundamental problems. The United States is on the verge of starting regional conflicts, or contributing so much to regional conflicts that we would say that it's not a certainty that there would not be a nuclear weapon used tomorrow, and would largely be the fault of this United States as imperial force. And I think that that kind of problem and other problems of this kind with the United States alone are large enough that we should consider these other possibilities. Difficult as it may be, fighting against the entrenched power would require a good deal of effort on our parts, but nevertheless it is preferable to the annihilation of the species. The United States, burdened by its military-industrial complex, faces a stark choice then: cling to its past mandates and risk irrelevance or dramatic defeat as the whole world rallies against it, as it's beginning to do, or embrace a socialist AI agentic class network and spearhead the development of revolutionary cybernetic socialism. This choice will determine whether North America becomes a force for good in the world or fades into the background and ultimately becomes a global pariah for its past imperialistic crimes. The time has come to move beyond the limitations of the military-industrial complex and embrace a future where technology serves humanity and not profits. I was going to talk a little bit about the concept of the United Earth Directorate, but I will save that for another show. But it's a discussion about the changing face of the nation state overall, and how something like the AI agentic class network, as it moves into many millions, hundreds of millions of users, could effectively change the base, the industrial base of functioning in every continent, and basically become the superstructure, transforming institutions of a less physical kind through the collaboration of the cloud, so to speak. And I'll talk in that next show about the role of some countries potentially in that transition, and how increasingly global AI agentic class network could become something like the United Earth Directorate, and what that might look like. But thank you for your time, and have a good evening.